Rouen Cathedral, in French, Cathédrale primatiale Notre-Dame de l'Assomption de Rouen, is a Roman Catholic church in Rouen, France. It is the see of the Archbishop of Rouen, Primate of Normandy. You can see how beautiful this cathedral is, the outside of it. It is, as far as architectural tradition is concerned, it is built in the Gothic architectural tradition, with all those pointy spirals. When you look at this location, a church was already there, present at the location in the late 4th century. Later on, eventually, a cathedral was built in Rouen, and it was enlarged by Saint Owen in 650, and even Charlemagne visited it in 769. During a Viking raid in the 9th century, all the buildings were devastated and perished. The Viking leader Rollo, founder of the Duchy of Normandy, was baptized here in 915 and buried in 932. I'm going to show his burial because he's buried here later in this video. His grandson, Richard I further enlarged it in 950. Saint-Romain's tower was built in 1035. The buildings of Archbishop Robert II were consecrated in 1065, and the cathedral was struck by lightning in 1110. Construction on the current building, as you can see it here, began in the 12th century in early Gothic style for St. Roman's Tower, front side porches and part of the nave. The cathedral was burned in 1200, but others were built in high Gothic style for the main works, nave, transept, choir, and the first floor of the lantern tower in the 13th century. Side chapels, lady chapel, and side doorways in the 14th century. Very interesting thing is that some windows are still decorated with stained glass of the 13th century. You will see this glass also in this video later. This glass was famous of a special cobalt blue color known as the blue from Chartres. The north transept and started in 1280. Sadly, the cathedral was struck by lightning in 1284, and in 1302 the old Lady Chapel was taken down and the new Lady Chapel was built in 1360. The spire was blown down in 1353, choir windows were enlarged in 1430, the upper story of the northwest tower was added in 1477, gable of the north transept was built in 1478. You can see here is the stained glass, how beautiful it is. Some additional parts were constructed in late Gothic style. These parts include the last story of St. Roman's Tower, 15th century, the Butter Tower, main porch of the front, and the two stories of the Lantern Tower, 16th century. Construction of the southwest tower began or started in 1485 and was finished in 1507. The Butter Tower was erected in the early 16th century. Construction of the Butter Tower caused disturbances in the facade, which again led to the reconstruction of the central portal in the west front, which started in 1509 and was finished in 1530. The original Gothic spire suffered a fire in 1514, but the project of a stone spire was rejected and a wooden construction covered with gold-plated lead was begun in 1515. A parapet was added in 1580. During the French Wars of Religion in the late 16th century, the cathedral was badly damaged. The Calvinists damaged much of the furniture, tombs, stained glass windows, and statuary. The cathedral was again struck by lightning in 1625 and 1642, then again damaged by a hurricane in 1683. The woodwork of the choir burned in 1727 and the bell broke in 1786. In the late 18th century, after the French Revolution, the state nationalized the building and sold some of its furniture and statues to make money, and the chapel fences were sadly melted down to make guns to support the wars of the French Republic. Richard the Lionheart's heart is buried here, and actually on 26 March 1199 he was hit in the shoulder by a crossbow and the wound turned gangrenous. He asked his soldiers, to bring in the crossbowman. It was a boy called Pierre Basile, also other names, so chronicles are given for him. But in an act of chivalry, Richard pardoned him, but it's not clear what happened to him after Richard died on April the 6th, 1199, in the arms of his mother because of the wound turned gangrenous. Richard's heart was buried at Rouen, Normandy, as I said, his entrails in Chalus, where he died, and the rest of the body at the feet of his father in Fontevraud Abbey in Anjou. In 2012, scientists analyzed the remains of Richard's heart and found that it had been embalmed with various substances, including frankincense, a symbolically important substance because it had been both present at the birth and embalming of the Christ. Here, Rollo or Royo, a Viking who became the first ruler of Normandy, is also buried. He emerged as the outstanding warrior among the Norsemen who had secured a permanent foothold on Frankish soil in the valley of the Lower Seine. So he is also buried here in Rouen. Back to the church and the cathedral's history. The Renaissance spire was destroyed by lightning in 1822. A new one was rebuilt in neo-Gothic style, but of cast iron instead of original wood. The cathedral was named the tallest building with the lantern tower with the cast iron spire of the 19th century in the world, 151 meters from 1876 to 1880. In the 20th century, during the Second World War, the cathedral was sadly bombed in April 1944 by the British Royal Air Force. They threw 7 bombs on the building, narrowly missing a key pillar of the lantern tower, but damaging much of the south aisle and destroying 2 rows windows. Henry the Young King is also buried here, who lived from February 28, 1155 to June 11, 1183. Um, he was, Henry the Young, or the Young King, uh, he, he was the son of Henry II of England, and in 1170 he was titular King of England. So as you see, he's also buried in the Rouen Cathedral. This is his tomb. So many statues are here in the Rouen Cathedral, and in every corner of it you can see different ones, and just can spend hours and hours looking at them. And also there are many beautiful paintings here. Longsword is also buried here. William Longsword was the second ruler of Normandy from 1927 until his assassination in 1942. So you can see this is also his tomb is here. He's buried here, William Longsword. The history of the cathedral. We said that the British Royal Air Force, bombed it, but it was not the only bombing. Sadly, a second bombing was conducted by the US Army Air Force before the Normandy landings in June 1944. This bombing burned the oldest tower, called the North Tower of Saint-Romain Tower. During the fire, the bells melted, leaving molten remains on the floor. In 1999, during Cyclone Lothar, a copper-clad wooden turret which weighed 26 tons broke and fell partly into the church and damaged the choir. As far as I'm concerned, you see that this cathedral went through different catastrophes, but then survived, repaired, reconstructed, and that's what we can see with your own eyes today. It has also the cathedral has had a musical tradition since the medieval times. Its choir was known up to the French Revolution for singing from memory. which is quite amazing. See here the painted glass here. The cathedral also inspired many painters. The most famous paintings of the cathedral were done by the Impressionist artist Claude Monet, who produced a series of paintings of the building showing the same scene at different times of the day and in different weather conditions. Two of these paintings are in the National Gallery of Art in Washington, D.C. One is in the Getty Center in Los Angeles. One is in the National Museum of Serbia in Belgrade. One is in the Clark Art Institute in Williamstown, Massachusetts. One is in a museum of Cologne. One is in the Rouen Fine Art Museum. And 5 are in the Musée d'Orsay in Paris. So I hope you enjoyed this beautiful cathedral. It's really amazing. Each time I'm in Normandy in France, I go and visit this cathedral. Please subscribe to our channel, support us, make comments, ask any questions you have, and see you soon.